President Obama has delivered a major speech in Cairo calling for a new start between the United States and Muslims around the world. He said the cycle of suspicion and discord between the Muslim world and the West must end. His strongest words came on the issue of creating a Palestinian state, an outcome which he promised he would personally pursue. Our Middle East editor Jeremy Bowen reports from Cairo.
The Egyptians put on the best show they could for President Obama. They see themselves as the center of the Arab Middle East and were gratified Cairo was chosen for his speech. So far, President Obama has been good at making friends in this part of the world. President Mubarak of Egypt, who he has praised, not criticized, despite his regime's abuse of human rights, looks to be the latest.
I just want to thank President Mubarak.
But the challenge he faces is big: to repair the damage done by George Bush, to restore Washington's power to persuade Muslims and Arabs who don't live in presidential palaces that they can be on the same side.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
President Obama had a warm welcome at Cairo University. There's a fund of goodwill for him, which is the greatest political advantage he can have in the Middle East.
I'm also proud to carry with me the goodwill of the American people and a greeting of peace from Muslim communities in my country. Assalamu alaikum.
He delivered an ambitious manifesto for change in America's relations with Muslim countries and for progress in Middle Eastern peace. He said his own upbringing and experience showed him that it was time for a new beginning.
That experience guides my conviction that partnership between America and Islam must be based on what Islam is, not what it isn't. And I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear.
The president called for Palestinians to give up violence, but spoke also of Israel's obligations and of Palestinian pain.
At the same time, Israelis must acknowledge that just as Israel's right to exist cannot be denied, neither can Palestine's. The United States does not accept the legitimacy of continued Israeli settlements. This construction violates previous agreements and undermines efforts to achieve peace. It is time for these settlements to stop.
This speech was aimed at a huge audience, all those who have a stake in the Middle East.
And may God's peace be upon you. Thank you very much.
But the time is coming when words, however well chosen and effective, have to be backed by deeds. If that is not President Obama's next stage in his remaking of American foreign policy, then the goodwill he has here in the Middle East will dissipate.
Well, Jeremy joins us live from Cairo now. How do you think this speech is going to be received across the Middle East?
Well, I think in Arab countries, and I think as well for a lot of people in Muslim countries who've been listening to it outside the Middle East, he'll have said all the right things. You know, the difficulty about this, though, is that he raises expectations among that audience pretty much every time he opens his mouth on these subjects. And that's quite a dangerous thing, because there is an expectation growing that because it's the President of the United States saying these things, then he's going to have to deliver on them. I think as well there'll be people in Israel, particularly those who support the current right-wing government there, who will listen to this speech and not be very happy about it at all. There was plenty of stuff in the Israeli papers this morning saying that they were nervous about what he would say. And the thing about the tone of the speech was that it was pretty even-handed, and that's not something that Israeli leaders have been used to in the last few years.
Also, what was striking as well was the tone at time was quite personal, wasn't it? Would that be effective?
Very effective, I think, with his immediate audience here, and I think a lot of people, again, people in Arab countries, Muslim countries, listening to it. I mean, he got a big round of applause when he mentioned his own middle name, Hussein. And he talked as well about the fact he'd spent time in Indonesia as a young child, all those things which he says actually aren't all that important, but of course they're very important in terms of his political appeal, in terms of his own identity and self-image. And that's the basis, he's saying, why he wants the manifesto of change that he's talked about in the Middle East, especially, and in America's relations with the Muslim world. But, you know, I come back to the fact that expectations are now growing pretty quickly. And if he can't deliver on them, perhaps even by the end of the year, that goodwill, that pool of goodwill, I think is going to drain fast.
Jeremy Bowen, thank you. Well, let's get more reaction from the region. We can take you live now to our correspondent John Line, who's in Tehran. What have they made of the speech there, John?
It's very interesting here. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, felt the need to speak even before this speech, to preempt it. And he said the beautiful words were all very well, but that alone to the Muslim world was not enough. Iran needed to see action. And I think it is fair to say that Iran believes there hasn't been any radical change of actual concrete policy towards Iran, despite all the words from President Obama. Not that there's any indication that Iran particularly wants a reconciliation. Nevertheless, they don't believe they've been given that opening yet. By contrast, the Iranian people, I think, are intrigued and very interested in what they've been hearing from President Obama. And many people one speaks to here are very interested indeed in a reconciliation, a warming of relations with the United States. And of course, there's going to be a presidential election in 8 days' time here, and Iranians will have their choice to say which way they believe the foreign policy of this country should go.
John Line in Tehran, thank you. Let's take you to Tim Franks, who's in Jerusalem. What about reaction in Israel, Tim?
I think that there's going to be much more head scratching from the Israeli government as to where their relationship with this new American administration is going to go. We had a restatement of some strong language towards Israel on the need for Israeli settlements in the West Bank, in Barack Obama's words, to stop. Now, whether that means just that the continued expansion of Israeli settlements should end, or indeed whether existing settlements, some of the newer, smaller ones, should be disbanded, I think that's unclear. But the very fact that he's restating the language that has been used by his Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, will ring alarm bells with the Israeli government, and I don't think that they have decided yet how to deal with it. It's going to be very interesting over the next couple of months to see how these words translate into actions both by the Israeli government and by the American administration.
Tim Franks, thank you.